I got thinking this past week about how I've changed in my likes and my dislikes over the years. I got thinking about that, how I've switched in my likes and dislikes. And so I have some examples of some areas that I've changed. For example, ever since I was a little kid, I'm a good red-blooded Canadian boy, I have loved hockey. And try to guess, what do you think was my favorite hockey team since I was a little kid? Any guesses? No, it wasn't the Toronto Maple Leafs. No. My favorite team till I was about 20 was the Boston Bruins. I know. Work with me. Let me finish. Man. So this was actually, I was given this shirt when I was 12 years old as a Christmas present. My parents bought me this official Boston Bruins shirt. See my name on the back? I was a huge Terry O'Reilly fan. My parents actually took me to Boston. I toured the old Boston Garden. I was a rabid Boston Bruins fan until I was about 20, 22, 23 years old. And now today, I hate the Bruins. I hate them. I don't know. I've changed. I don't quite understand. I switched. Another thing. Tomatoes. I used to hate tomatoes. I'd never actually eaten a tomato, but I hated the thought of eating a tomato. I love ketchup. I love tomato sauce on a pizza. In fact, we used to own a pizza place when I was a kid, and I worked there. I flipped pizzas for years, but I hated tomatoes. And then, about 10 years ago, I thought, I'm going to try a tomato. Like if you had given me a hamburger with a tomato slice on it, I would have said, thanks, taking the tomato slice off. In a salad, really? Why waste? What's these red dots in my salad? Get them out of here. Put them with the croutons off to the side. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to try a slice of tomato. I loved it. Tomatoes are good. Now, I would bite into this, but I need it for a couple more services, so no, I'm going to save it. But I used to hate tomatoes. Now I love tomatoes. Another example of how I've switched in my likes. Washing my car. I used to love to wash my car. I mean, I would, on a vacation, every day I would wash and wax my car. Literally 2 years ago, when I had a couple weeks vacation in the summertime, my car was literally waxed 20 times. 20 layers of wax on that thing. I mean, it was beautiful. It was gleaming. In fact, I had the cops pulling me over because I was damaging people's eyesights. I love to wash my car. But now, I could really take it or leave it, not really caring if I wash my car or not. I'll take it through the drive-through, once every now and then, and that should pretty well do it. Fourthly, and lastly, cats. Now, as many of you know, I was not a fan of cats for most of my life. In fact, I hated cats. Cats, because as a child, I was deathly allergic to cats. Cats put me in the hospital a couple times as a child. So I just learned to stay away from cats, and I learned to hate cats. But you know something? Now, as I've grown and matured, I'm here to... Oh, I can't. I still hate cats. I'm sorry, I can't fake it. I hate them still. So what about you? Are there things in your life where you've made a switch? Perhaps for you it was something more important than teams or tomatoes. For you, maybe it involved a spouse or a career path, something radical. Regardless, we all know what it's like to make a switch in some area of our lives. Well, last week, we learned about a switch that took place a long time ago. In fact, we said it was a switch, we called it a cosmic switch. It was the ultimate switch. It was a switch that changed the entire direction of human history. And we used this prop as a reminder. Last week, using the book of Genesis meaning beginning, the very first book of the Bible, we learned in the book of Genesis how God designed creation. We were designed to have God in our heart. Heart not meaning the organ in your body, heart meaning the core, the center, the throne of your life, the center, the heart of your existence. We were designed to have God at the center and hold things in our hands. In other words, we were designed to worship God and to use things. Worship God, use things. That's how we were designed. That's how God created us. Worship God, use things. In fact, everyone say that with me. Worship. Well done. That's how we were designed. But then the serpent, the craftiest of all God's creatures, he came to Adam and Eve, the first human pair. And God had said to Adam and Eve, listen, worship me, use things. I give you all of this creation for you to subdue and rule over. But God said, there's one thing in the garden that you can't use, you can't eat, one fruit. And that is the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Whatever the fruit was, we don't know. Some say an apple, we have no idea. It was some fruit. And here's the thing, God wasn't withholding from humanity. He wanted to teach us the difference between good and evil by following the good and shunning the evil. By doing what was right and shunning what was wrong. So every time they saw that fruit, they saw, we can't have anything else in the world, but not that one. And by shunning the evil and choosing the good, they would learn the difference between good and evil. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the serpent came along and he said, is it true that God won't let you eat anything in this garden? And Eve said, oh, no, we can have anything. We just can't have from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because the day we eat of that, we'll die. And the serpent said, you won't die. No, God knows that when you eat of that fruit, you'll be like him. And you'll know the difference between good and evil. Now listen, see what the serpent did. What he got them to do was focus in on the things. Focus in on the things at the exclusion of everything else. You're losing something. God's keeping something away from you. If you only had this thing, that would be the secret to all fulfillment and joy. Focus on the thing. Focus on the thing. And what the serpent got them to do was bite the bait and believe the lie. And they began to put things at the center of their existence and kept God at arm's length. And we learned last week that that is materialism and that is idolatry. Idolatry and materialism is worshiping what should be used and using what should be worshiped. Idolatry and materialism is worshiping what should be used and using what should be worshiped. Using God to get more things. That is the nature of materialism, the nature of idolatry. And we learned last week that as Canadians, we are well familiar with putting things at the center of our lives and living for the accumulation of things. And that brings us to today. Today, I have a question for you. A question that you can answer in the privacy of your own heart and mind. And the question is this. Have you made the same switch that Adam and Eve made? Have you secretly placed things at the core of your life and placed God at arm's length? If you haven't made the switch, are you in danger of making it? Are you tempted to make it? Are you leaning in that direction, perhaps? Or maybe you're trying to have it both ways. Maybe you're treating the heart and the core of your life like it's a timeshare, and things and God slip in and out of that part of your life, depending on the day of the week, the month of the year, the time of your life. Where are you at in this area? For the next 15 minutes, I'm speaking to those who are on the fence, or those who have hopped the fence when it comes to materialism. For the next 15 minutes, I'm speaking to those who are tempted to place things at the core of their existence, or who've already decided to do so. When the serpent convinced Adam and Eve to make the switch, he did it through deception. Like any good huckster or any good con man, he did it by telling them a lie. The story's told of a man who was walking along a beach and he found a bottle lying in the sand. He picks it up, he rubs the bottle, and a genie appears. True story. The genie appears, and the genie says, "What would you like?" And the man says, "I would like you to give me a 10,000 square foot mansion on 200 acres of oceanfront property. That's what I would like." And in a moment of unexpected honesty, the genie says, "If I could do that, do you really think I'd be living in a bottle?" Today, like that genie, I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth about the danger of materialism. 2,000 years ago, a man named Paul was nearing the end of his ministry and the end of his life. He was in prison for preaching about Jesus. But he was determined to spend his final days pouring into the next generation. And as part of that plan, he corresponded with an emerging young leader named Timothy. We have 2 letters that Paul wrote to this young man named Timothy, and in one of Paul's letters, he shared a crucial insight regarding the danger of materialism. Listen to how Paul described a life of living with things at the center of your existence. It's found in 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting at verse 9. Paul wrote this: "People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil." Now, some people, eager for money, they've wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Now listen, pay close attention here, because many people within the sound of my voice right now are tempted to tune out when you read these couple verses. Why? Because in our minds we think, oh, Paul's talking to rich people. Yeah, stick it to the rich, Paul. He's talking to the rich, and he's not talking to me, because as we learned last year, that very few of us consider ourselves to be rich. So he's talking to the rich. So you think in your mind, oh, he's not talking to me. Paul's not talking to the rich. Look what he says in the very first verse. He's talking to people who want to get rich. That means people who presently don't consider themselves rich, or who presently are not rich. He's talking to people who want to get rich. He's talking to people who have placed things at the center of their life. People who are on a path seeking to pursue riches. He's talking about materialism. Now, from this small snippet from Paul's letter, I see 2 crucial truths that I want to highlight. 2 crucial truths that I hope will cause you to run as far away from materialism as possible. Have you ever been hacked? Have you ever had someone somehow get a hold of your password and access to all your computer files? A few months ago, I was having trouble with my computer, and at Broadway here, we have a company that looks after the safety of our computers, and so I contacted the company, and they said, okay, no, you can just on your computer right now, Darren, I don't need to come into the office. They just said, I can remotely get into your computer. I said, okay. So I just sat there. He's in his office somewhere in BC, and I'm in my office, and lo and behold, in front of me on my computer screen, he's moving around with some mouse, and he's opening things, closing things, adding files, deleting files, and I'm sitting back, my hands are not touching my computer, and I'm thinking, this is not comfortable. This is scary, watching someone move around and do all sorts of things on my computer. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, Darren, you've lost the plot. I mean, what does being hacked have to do with the danger of materialism? Think in these terms. When materialism gets a hold of the password to your heart, it takes over. It takes control. It sets up shop, and it starts moving files around within you. In other words, as your outline says, materialism hacks into your will. Materialism hacks into your will. On your outline, look again at that passage from Paul. Do you see the word want in that first verse? People who want to get rich. That's an unusual word in the original Greek language that Paul wrote that letter in. It's not the garden variety word for want. It's not the word that you would say when you say, I want the Canucks to beat Montreal tomorrow night. It's not the word for simply desiring or hoping or wishing for something to happen. This word is much stronger than that. This word meant to resolutely plan. This word meant to predetermine and to determine something, to have a predetermined and a determined intention, to plot, to scheme, to intentionally lay out something. Think of it in these terms. Have you ever had a friend that was just a bit too intense in the relationship? A friend who smothered you. They wanted to know where you were at all times. They wanted to know what you were doing at all times. And they wanted to know that they were the only person in your life. That's the word that Paul used for want here. This is stalker level wanting. And that's the kind of friend you're hooking up with when you invite materialism into your heart. Materialism hacks into your will. Materialism has a plan for your life. It takes over. It takes control. Not only does it change your plans, but it also changes what you love. Materialism injects into your will a love of money. Materialism hacks into your heart, and it starts pumping your heart with envy and covetousness. You're suddenly aware of what you don't have, and you're suddenly aware of what other people do have. You're suddenly thinking, oh, if I only had this, if I only had that. But this love goes even further than that. Like any love, this love protects. But this is a love of money. It's not a love of you, it's a love of money. So it only protects your money. And it does this by alerting you to anyone that it suspects of wanting to touch your money. I wonder how many in this room felt its breath a few moments ago as I was standing up here receiving the offering, asking the ushers to come forward. I wonder how many of you felt the breath of materialism in the back of your neck at that moment. You heard a voice that sounded just like your voice, and it said this: he's trying to get my money. I know what he's doing here. All this sweet talking, he's thankful. I know what he's doing. And that voice is saying, hey, I've got a plan for that money, and that plan doesn't involve giving it away. And it certainly doesn't involve giving it away to a charity. Think of all you could do with that money. You need it more than this church does. Look, they got a giant tree behind them here. What a waste. Look at the lights on that thing. That's using energy right now. They're just peeing money away. Yeah, I said it. And you're thinking to yourself, really? And look at this guy. Do you trust him? Really? A couple of weeks ago, he said he had 2 dogs. Who has 2 dogs? Guy has more money than he knows what to do with. He's probably got mansions. You need it more. You heard this voice. That is the voice of materialism. Materialism hacks into your will. It changes your plans. It changes what you love. And it also changes what you pursue. Paul warned that some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Now, that word translated eager in English there, that's an interesting word in the original Greek. It literally means to stretch oneself out towards. Materialism leads people to stretch themselves out towards money. It is a full body lunge for cash. Now, whenever I think of stretching out towards something, I picture one of the most embarrassing moments in my life in the last 20, 30 years. A couple years ago, my wife and I took our 2 youngest kids down to San Francisco. I wanted to tour Alcatraz and kind of see the San Francisco area. So we drove down and spent a few days in the San Francisco area. And we were right down by the pier there and at a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, shiny, gleaming floors, beautiful tablecloths. We're sitting there at the table and looking through the menus, and I was kind of fidgeting because I'm a fidget, and I knocked the fork off my table, so I thought, well, I'm not going to use that fork, so I picked it up and put it on the side. And I saw a table behind me that had clean forks on it, so I reach and I stretch and I stretch and I tilt my chair. Did I mention the floor was shiny? And so I tilt over the chair, I'm stretching myself out, and slam! I fell face first onto this floor. And this busy restaurant went quiet. Everyone stood up and looked. And my family's at their table, they're just going, oh man. And so they're quiet for like 10 seconds. I said, no, nobody come to my rescue, I'm fine. Everything's fine over here. It was humiliating. When you stretch yourself out towards something, you make yourself vulnerable. And you can fall on the floor, or according to Paul, you can fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge you into ruin and destruction. You see, not only does materialism hack into your will, but once it's gained your password, materialism slowly destroys your life. It slowly destroys your life. I mean, look at the litany of despair that materialism brings on your in the passage today. Temptations, traps, foolish desires, harmful desires, ruin, destruction, all kinds of evil. Materialism hacks into your will, and materialism slowly destroys your life. Well, let's conclude by looking at the very last sentence. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith. Stop for a moment and think about that. Catch your breath and ponder the scope of that statement. Some people, eager, stretching themselves out for money, have wandered from the faith. If you secretly think that you can dabble with idolatry, if you secretly think that this series is nothing more than an attempt at fundraising, think again. This is serious stuff. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith. Please hear me. Materialism is so dangerous that it actually has the ability to convince you to turn your back on the cross of Jesus Christ. Please hear me. Materialism is so demonic that it has the ability to talk you into hardening your heart against the gift of God in Christ Jesus. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith. Okay, they're switched, they've wandered, but what are they switching for? What are they wandering towards? What are they getting in exchange? Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. What? They're wandering away from God, and they're wandering into a life of self-inflicted grief. What? Why? Why would anyone do such a thing? Behold the power of materialism. Because materialism is all about the next thing. Oh, sure, today isn't satisfying. Oh, but the next dollar could do it. Oh, sure, nothing that you've ever earned or owned to this day has ever satisfied you ultimately, but the next thing you buy might do it. Such is the lie of materialism. It's the ultimate carrot on the stick. It's the ultimate Ponzi scheme. It strings you along and in the end leaves you empty forever. Jesus put it this way: what does it profit a person if they gain the whole world and lose their soul? What does it profit you? What can a person give in exchange as a switch for their soul? Materialism hacks into your will, and it slowly destroys your life. So let me ask you this as I conclude. Where are you at in this tension between God and things? Who or what lies at the heart of your existence? Are you living with God at the core, or are you living in the grip of materialism? Do you know? Maybe you're sitting there and you think, I really am not sure. Maybe I'm more close to the timeshare concept. How can a person really tell? Actually, there is a pretty good way to find out whether or not you're in the grip of materialism. There's a pretty reliable litmus test for materialism. And how you respond to this test is quite a good, accurate indicator of the state of your heart. And I'm going to give you that test next week when we conclude this series.